Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, my amateur and expert family and friends.
It's all out there.
So good to see you again today. You know, it's a beautiful day here in Plainfield, New Jersey. The sun is shining so brightly. But you know, I just got well, I don't know how bad the news is because it's news. I'll let you decide that. But I just heard that the Supreme Court has made our ex-president, King, what's that man's name? Don't even want to call him Trump.
They call him Trump.
Well,
I
that's
call
what
him
they
something
call him.
else.
Okay.
But, it's a family show, so
Yeah, so if you all haven't watched the news, the Supreme Court came down and just kind of gave him all kinds of privileges. So I guess now he can go out in the middle of Broadway or wherever he said he could go and shoot somebody and, you know, get away with it. But it is what it is. But I just thank God for this opportunity that he enables us here at the podcast to bring you information, true information. Least we perish for lack of it. And, you know, I tell you all that. We have a lot of information coming through, but much of it is information from people like Trump and those who just don't know how to tell the truth. But the truth of the matter is we have to begin to get knowledge from folks who we know, at least telling the truth. But I just want right now to thank my crew, my producers, Sheila Brown-Bird and Lula Williams Salvador. I want to thank my advisor, Juanita McClure. I sure want to thank my promo crew, Alwa and Elijah. And, of course, this great engineer here, Norm. Just want to thank him for keeping me real here and allowing me this space. And, of course, my co-host, King Professor Terry Benjamin.
Yes.
I want to say to all of you, and, of course, you all know me. I'm your unapologetic amateur, still looking for the experts in Africanism, Ruby Williams Shivers.
That's right.
You know, it is just such a blessing to be with you this afternoon. I don't know if you all have heard, but there are all kinds of goodies that's being taken away from us. Affirmative action, school preference, voting rights, African history, health care, DEI, you name it, just taken right up from under us. But I feel we are discussing handouts. See, I see them as handouts rather than seeing the elephant in the room, which is reparation.
That's right.
Our experts cannot combat racism vis-a-vis these handouts without putting our situation in a different frame of reference. You know, truth be told, white women benefited more from affirmative action than we did.
That's right.
It doesn't mean they don't deserve compensation based on their own treatment by their own men, but to us, that's like saying someone with a minor cold deserves the same attention as someone with COVID virus. You know, it just doesn't fly.
No, it doesn't.
See, what we went through and still going through created paradoxes rather than straightforward, easy explanations. Now, there is an increase in the awareness about these issues. Yeah, we're always coming up. A lot of our people are presenting facts to us, but more concerted effort need to be applied from those who already have the expertise to take this conversation to another level.
That's right.
More intelligent gathering and less focus on what is obvious, the mental and physical conditions of our people. Unfortunately, and fortunately, I guess, we have come a long way. You know, we were stripped of everything. Our culture, our religion, our heritage, everything. Only shortly less than 100 years ago, it was a crime to even read. Yeah, we have come a long way. Now we are inarguably the most savvy, the most creative, the most articulate. Yeah, we know the King's English, most of which was stolen from other civilizations, but what we haven't mastered is the ability to think beyond our obvious circumstances. We see what we see and we think we're the blame. Y'all know what we say about each other. We don't stick together. We are our worst enemies, crabs in the barrels, and on and on and on. We are not to blame for this brain dirtying, But those who are thoroughly knowledgeable about our situation, our experts in Africanism, need to pursue this paradox the same as experts pursue the pandemic virus or a heart attack. It's just that specific and just that serious. See, when I qualify our situation as unique, it separates it from any other catastrophe imposed on a group. See, there is terminology, that tools, if you will. They're terminology for our situation. We should use it to separate our experience from any other people who have gone through any catastrophe. If we continue to use slavery, the word slavery, to describe our experience, when what we went through is absolutely something different, we are defeating the purpose. That's why reparation is so necessary. See, reparation will put us on a footing of equality that would at least allow us to negotiate from a closer proximity to equity. But when you are in our position and expect us to understand where we are not and where we are not is in command of our situation. So when we, the African community, say we are our worst enemies, we don't stick together, we're crabs in the barrel, etc., and don't understand the underlying causes, we are continuing to damage the psyche of generations to come. We've got to stop it. For example, for those of us who believe that there was and is a legitimate pandemic, knew that to go in public without a mask was a risk to our health. We also know that a gunshot wound to the head, heart, requires special attention. You wouldn't run to me except to rush you to the emergency room. Well, why would you think I could cure the wounds of 200 years of genocide? Ma'afa. Obviously, more severe than the virus. Because what we went through was more severe than the virus, or the gunshot wound to the heart. So we need specialists, experts. We're going to continue to bring this topic forward. My bringing in experts and experts to be so we can deal with our ailment, genocide. I talked about reparation being the catalyst to work from. Well, we are going to dedicate this month, July,
beautiful.
as Reparation Month.
That's right.
Now, remember, you heard it here first, right, Terry?
That's right. That's right.
Because we believe reparation will put us on a level of respectability
right.
that would demand attention.
Right.
Because no one respects us in the position we are in. You heard King Trump just the other day refer to, quote, black jobs.
Oh, my goodness.
He said it.
He did.
Others
He did.
believe it, but he just was stupid enough to say it. So the primary goal of this podcast is to give us, the African people, an awakening of how and why we need to see ourselves uniquely different than any other group that has ever been enslaved.
Wow.
And Terry, you know,
That's well said. That was well said.
thank you, sir.
Well presented.
Because you know, bringing us to a point where we can just concentrate on and talk about reparation, you know, until we get it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I'm confident, I'm just so convinced that would be one of the things that will give us that. I don't even want to use the word respectability, but it is true because people don't respect everyone. Trump can call whatever we're doing black jobs. That shows you they may not say it.
That's right.
But if you got reparation, you will build equal footing with whomever you are talking to present your situation, and they would respect it better, knowing that you know we deserve at least working for the first 200 years for free labor.
Well, I think you really hit it on the head when you talk about equality. Because all we want to do, it's not a level playing field right now. And it's because we don't really have the information. And just two things that I want to just put out just to continue our conversation. Number one, the Bible. You know, the Bible is a book that many have read, many have not read. But if you just look at it as literature, if you look at it as just facts, there's some things in the Bible that point to what we're talking about. Because at 1 Timothy 5:18 it says here, you shall not muzzle an ox while it treads on out the grain, and the laborer is worthy of his wages. And
Yeah.
repeats again on Luke 10:7, the laborer deserves his wages. So we worked to build this country, so we deserve our wages. We deserve what we work for. And the second thing that I want to do, and we're going to do it a lot during this month of talking about reparations, we're going to go to the experts.
Right.
And this is a book that I read in 1965. And I go back to it again and again because it gives us some information. And this is before the Mayflower, a history of our people from 1619 to 1962. And it was written by Lerone Bennett Jr., a classic.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it helps us go back not to just 1619, but it goes all the way back to 1492, when
Okay.
Negroes, as they were called at that time, were traveling with explorers like Balboa and Ponce de Leon and Cortez and Pizarro and Menendez. So it just shows that the African presence was here long before we came to America.
Yeah.
And again, we need to go back and understand that. And I said before when I gave my talk on Juneteenth, I came with the epiphany that we are Africans in America. And I hold to that. And as we speak about reparations, we want that as Africans in America because, again, we built this country, we built this infrastructure, and we need to get paid for it.
Oh, definitely. And the sooner we learn that on our own, the better we'll be. But we won't learn that necessarily. I always go back to the point that we need the experts in Africanism.
And we have to, yeah.
The title of this podcast is Unapologetic Amateur, looking for experts in Africanism. And I define that as someone who knows the total history of us as African people, not just since we was over here in the diaspora, but from the time we were created. By God, it tells me we were the first creation. So if we were the first creation, everything else came from us, or everyone else came from us, then we need to know that. We need to know then that the civilization that we created and that we, that other folks now are stealing from us or borrowing.
Well, they say that Africa was the birthplace of civilization, so everybody came from Africa.
And that's what we should we should know, and we should use that
And we have
as
to.
the backdrop for what we need to do to get out from the brain dirtying that has been put upon us here.
Yes.
Because, see, it's not easy enough just to say, well, we should know that. Why should we just know that?
Yeah,
I
that's right,
use the examples. I tell you, God gives me these examples to try to put out so I can explain to people who may not catch my drift at first.
Of course.
So what I say is the same way as we think about the pandemic that came back, the virus. When it came through, it was so uniquely different than anything we had ever seen, even with the colds, the flus, and we had viruses. But this was something so uniquely different. So we had to look at it in a different, from a different position, or with different people. And we know what we needed was experts to bring us through the situation. So we did have the epidemiologists and the other folks who studied viruses specifically.
That's right, yeah.
And they're the one that came up with what they thought we needed to get through it. Well, when I talk about us as African people and what we have been brought over from our homeland, stolen from our homeland, and brought over here through the 200 years of unparalleled abuse.
That's right, yeah.
And just been stripped of everything. So obviously, I mean, we need something different from what we have just been given. You know, and it's not to say we don't have experts, because we obviously have experts on hand as we speak. I talk about Dr. DeGraw, Joy DeGraw, often with her post-traumatic slave syndrome. That's been studied, and it's been determined different syndromes that we have come from the slaves.
That's right.
And then, of course, Dr. Frances Cress Wilson with her Cress Theory book, and John Henry Clark, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr.
John Hope Franklin, remember?
Oh, Franklin.
From Slavery to Freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
You
a
just
classic
read
book,
the brother,
It's Lerone
Bennett
Jr. from before the Mayflower.
Well, yeah, so we have experts who could, but what I'm suggesting, and wish that we can think of it from this perspective. There may be folks who knew a little bit about the virus separately, but we know when that virus came in, we got people together.
That's right.
We got groups together.
Groups together, came together.
So that's what we need. We need someone together that will bring this information to us in a packet.
That's right.
That would be respected by other folks.
Yeah.
But that's the only way, too,
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
going to get some respect. People, when they see that you're not just separate and thinking on your own,
No.
they begin
It
to
sees your
respect
focus.
what you,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly what
Yes.
you put together on. So that's what we're dreaming of, and that's what we have to always consider when we are talking about a particular situation, because it was more than slavery. It was genocide and what they call Ma'afa. It was something so deep that it would take someone other than just myself, the amateur. When I wrote the book, this book, Verbal Healing, some years back, was one of the I was trying to emphasize the not neglect, but the difference between knowing what you know,
Yes.
if you will,
Yeah.
then guessing what you're talking about, or not necessarily guessing. You may have read it, but you don't know in depth the reasoning behind what's happening with us as African people. And that is one of the reasons we come up with pointing fingers at each other and say, well, we are our worst enemy, we're crabs in the barrels and all that, because we are seeing it from where we're seeing it, from our eyes.
That's right.
But if we're not
From
studying
a different perspective.
right.
Yeah.
If we are not studying it in depth,
Yes.
as other folks study things like this, severe, serious concerns, we're just going to miss the point.
You're right.
Going to miss the point. So we got to begin to learn that what we have gone through is such that we got to take a different approach in dealing with it. You know, if we're going to legitimately expect ourselves to get from under.
But do you think that the average black person knows what reparations are and why they're important to us, or they just?
Well, I think there we
What do
know
you think?
we know things now. We definitely we know things. We can see it from our mind's eye. We could say, okay, we know we worked. We've heard that.
Yes.
They not have read it. They want to let us read books, but we know enough about
We worked,
our
right.
situation
That's right.
to know that we have been over here over 400 years
Okay.
doing their work, still doing their work.
Yes.
And we know the first 200 was free work.
Yes.
And we know outside of the 200, we was in jail that we was putting out work for them that they call it was incarceration, but it was slavery.
It was. That's what it
Coming
was.
from
Yeah.
That's what it was. So we understand, but we don't. Like I said in my
Yeah.
introduction,
I remember you said that.
we are inarguably some of the smartest people in the world.
Yeah.
We articulate
No
quite
doubt about it.
well.
No doubt about
You know,
it.
we
Yeah,
know
yeah.
the King's English, like I say, with bars from all the other kind of
That's right,
languages.
right.
But we know it. But that's not enough. We have missed the point of thinking beyond our situation. We see our situation as such.
Yes.
When we see that we are disproportionate behind in our health,
Right.
and
That's
our
right.
wealth,
That's right.
and our education,
Yes.
we question ourselves sometimes, and rightly so, because we may not know how to connect it.
Exactly.
Everybody does not know how to connect it with the situation that happened to us prior. But our experts know that. Our experts in Africanism,
Yeah.
and those are the ones that we've got to hold responsible for getting all this together. You know, and I make the comparison of the things like the virus that you had special people on,
That's
specialty,
true. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
experts,
Yeah.
I call
Yeah.
or any other serious condition. You can't find a condition anywhere more serious than the 200 years that happened to us
No,
as African people.
No, you can't.
So if that is the case, then we obviously need something as serious as that virologist or that epidemiologist or
That's
whatever
right.
the case was.
Whatever is needed. Yeah.
It needed to get us through wherever we are supposed to be gotten through.
But I think that you're asking the right questions. I think a lot
Yeah.
of times we don't ask the right questions, And like you said, if it's something that has never happened before, well, we can't go back to a history. We have to go into that experience. And like you say, a lot of times, we really have to go to the experts, and many of those experts can be found in books only because they've studied and they put their findings together in different books. Back in the day, they were saying that the path to liberation is through books, and that's why they want to ban our books, because they know if we get the knowledge and understanding, we'll realize that we're not getting what we deserve out of this country.
Right.
And once we decide what we deserve, we're going to ask those questions. And then you're going to bring in people who are going to expand upon those questions. And so we'll come to a solution of our situation, because we're nowhere near where we should be in this country. After all these years, we shouldn't be where we are.
Exactly. And that's not innately of something that we are missing.
Right. Yeah.
If we believe our history, and I believe my history.
Yes.
If we believe that we were great people,
right. Kings and
that
queens.
were brought
Kings and
over
queens.
here, not slaves, because we were not slaves, we was enslaved, but we were definitely not slaves.
That's right.
But if we do really believe that and accept that, and I do,
I do too. Yeah.
then what happened to that part of our brain thinking or whatever that is missing now?
Yes.
We know we can't always articulate that on the level where majority of us are.
That's right.
But we do know too, as I said, you can name them. There are experts out there who have this knowledge, but it needs to be concentrated to a point where they can put it in a pamphlet, if you will, same as other things are done.
Because we had the privilege, of going to a event in Plainfield. Was what they called the last Juneteenth event, and Lawrence Ham spoke, and Bill Davis spoke, and both of them put together a presentation that was invaluable to me, because I knew somewhat of the history of enslavement in New Jersey, but they brought it together. And what I loved about what Bill said, that public education was a result of black people in New Jersey, because before public education was really the province of wealthy slave owners,
right,
or churches.
Or churches.
Okay, but with public education, it opened up not just for blacks, but for anybody. And I know personally, I am a product of public education.
Well, all of us now in the last centuries or so are, but it was interesting to learn the history of how the public education. But having said that, even when public education became public in the schools, we were not allowed we were not allowed to take advantage of that because we were not allowed to read or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah,
and he talked about what's that Benjamin Franklin, not Benjamin Franklin, the other guy, who went over was in Europe, and it's one of the ways he got his freedom because he had begun to study through, I think, his master's.
Yeah, well, it was Frederick Douglass.
Frederick Douglass.
Yeah, because he was listening to his master
teaching
his children.
And he was learning, and they realized he was learning, so they prevented him from doing that. And then when he went to Europe, and he picked up again and learned all that stuff, and he was still a slave.
Yeah, he was a slave, but the thing I like that Bill said is the fact that he could have stayed in Europe.
Yeah.
But he said, no, my fight
is
here
in
and I think we can say the same thing, because now we can get this dual citizenship to Africa, but like Bill Davis said and Lawrence Ham said, that our fight is here.
Right,
right.
And I think that's an excellent idea about dual citizenship. I just see it this way.
But it's not an escape, though.
It's not an escape. It's just that you could have the opportunity then. You have broader opportunity to go elsewhere or stay here and just visit those places. My church is, I think they have the trip to Ghana next month. As a matter of fact, our former pastor, Buster Soares, he just left yesterday, right after church. He did, my pastor was not there, and Pastor Quick, but the former pastor, Buster Soares, came and preached Sunday service, but he was on his way to Ghana.
But he's one of my heroes, because he's the one who is really He always talks about black people and how they have to get a hold of their finances and
Oh yeah,
and
very
build
much
up
so.
that way. And now him
Mhm.
going to Africa, and again, what it is it's a bridge between Africa and America,
Yes.
and we need that because we need more soldiers in the fight for our liberation because we're still fighting for our liberation
Yes.
in this particular country.
Yeah.
And so the more information that we have, the broader our perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I think the better. A lot of times I think we get so narrow that we think it's just about us here in America. But again, we are
Yeah.
the global majority, not the minority.
No, not the minority
You
by a
know,
long stretch.
and I think again there are people in this country, and I won't just say white people because I think it's broader than that. But there are people in this country who want to hold on to their power, and they figure that it's threatening if we realize and come to the power that is in us with a global majority. Now that we're traveling back and forth to Africa, we understand that it is a global perspective. And I think that's exciting for us, but I think it's
Yeah.
scary for a lot of other people.
Oh, it is scary for a lot of other people. And I would venture to say that it is, when I talk about people who hold the power, the only folk that I know are white folk that have taken the power from me.
Yes,
So
yes.
I don't know of other folks in their position, but I do know in terms of our situation in this country,
Yes, yes,
in the
yes.
diaspora from Africa,
Yes.
white folks who Europeans, I guess they call,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was responsible.
That's right.
So I won't, paint no slack on that.
Right,
That's
right,
just a fact.
Yes.
And since we
No,
are
no, that's right,
about
right.
bringing facts to this podcast,
That's right. And,
you know, I have to tell it like
and
it
to
is.
this audience, this is what
To
we
our
wanna
audience,
give
have to
you.
tell
Yeah,
it like
yeah.
it is. That's not to say that we did not have help along the way of our liberation, and it was not everybody doing the same thing.
No, no, it
'cause
wasn't. No, no.
we
Different things,
definitely
different
did.
things.
But to the extent that we got to keep it real, that's who really was responsible for the quote situation that I'm responding to when I say experts in Africanism, teaching us about how we got over here, what happened to us when we got over here, what is happening to us now, why we are disproportionate in all of the major things like education, health, and wealth, that we got to know that.
Yeah.
And if we don't know that, many of us don't.
Yeah.
Many of us don't. And if we kind of got a hint of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But when we realize, and read my book again, Verbal Healing,
Yeah, yeah.
we must reject tired, trite, tasteless, and other nonsensical expression that keep us damaged. Spoke specifically about those things that confused us.
That's right.
And when they confuse us, and the preface to my book, I say, if anyone doubts the extent of damage that 400 years of racism and mind altering through culture and mental deprivation have had on all people of African descent, come to this reading with an open mind. And our government has never even seen the need to apologize for the sorrow it put us through. First, I've explained that my expertise is not in the field of psychoanalysis. You know, when I tell you about we need experts.
That's right.
I never proclaimed that.
And those 3 areas you
But
always
my
talk about,
African guts and the revelations that I get from the Almighty shape what my pen puts to paper. Therefore, understanding the severe and sometimes indelible mark that racism has placed on our psyche, I'm convinced, and I believe psychology bears me out, that it is twice as hard to undo what was done. See, that's what we try to emphasize here. It's just not a matter of other folks' catastrophes.
That's
Whatever
right. No.
happened to them happened.
Yes, yeah.
You know,
yes,
because
yes,
I can sympathize with it.
Yeah,
Our
I can
Jewish
tell.
brothers and
Yeah,
sisters,
yes,
the
yeah.
Holocaust,
Of course.
they went through some serious things in the Holocaust.
That's right.
But what they didn't have, themselves stripped, that makes the difference.
It does. It makes a
We
big
went
difference.
through some serious atrocity. But in addition to that, we were stripped of our heritage, our religion, our culture,
That's right.
everything.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's what makes the difference.
It makes a big difference.
But even with their situation, they claim the word Holocaust. And seldom do you hear anybody else referring to that because they know that signifies something very specific
it does.
for
It
them.
does. It does.
But when we allow anyone to use the word slavery on
Mm-hmm,
us.
mm-hmm.
And then we hear people say, uh, other folks have been enslaved.
Yeah,
We'll even hear people
it's
say,
not the
well, your
same now.
own people. They'll say Africans enslaved each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Then we can't come
Yeah,
back if we don't know that there should be another word to use for us other than slavery.
That's right. That's right.
Because everybody else, from what I've read
Mm-hmm.
or heard about, have gone through what we went through.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? So, for instance, black people have been programmed to accept that they are less than others. It will require more than a mere no, you're not less to reverse the damage.
That's right, right.
It may require one pulling the wool of the fact that exposing the naked truth.
Mm-hmm.
If the truth points toward Africa being the cradle of civilization, Imhotep being the father of science,
Oh my goodness.
and Africans being the chosen people of God, then this book will go there. And that's what I tried to do. I tried to go to a point where we can appreciate
Mm-hmm.
who we really are without hesitation.
Yeah, sure. And I like what you said about education, because again, we talked about before the Mayflower, another book that's called Lessons from Black History, but it's by Juwanda Kunjufu.
Okay, he was
And,
quite a brother,
You know,
too.
quite a brother, and he talks about education, like you were saying, and this is
Mm-hmm.
from his book, and I'd like to just share that. It says here, Africans' love for education began at the Great Lodge of Mawat in Egypt. African Americans risked death during slavery trying to read under a candlelight or moonlight. After slavery, many Africans created independent black schools. Mary McLeod Bethune founded Bethune-Cookman. The black colleges continued to receive the fewest numbers of black students, but produced the largest number of graduates. The Kala Muhammad schools started under the leadership of Elijah Muhammad, and their graduates are fine examples of black excellence. Then he goes, and this is the point that I think he's making here. He says here, always, talking to black people, always value education. No one can control a person who knows his or her history, purpose, and direction. We are an African people whose purpose is the liberation of our race through the Nguzo Saba African value system. And I said in my presentation, when I spoke on Juneteenth, I said if we do have a black holiday or identify as a black holiday, it has to be based on a black value system.
Right.
And you know the things that we value because we talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and again, and I think that in what you're doing with your school, what I call the school after the school, where you sit down with your young people and you give them things that they're not going to get in school.
Exactly.
That's the thing, and the way the school system is set up, black kids are getting less and less and less,
Oh,
and that's
yes.
why we got to sublimate what they get. What we are. I say that every black household should have their own little library.
Oh, yeah,
where
definitely.
the kids can go through because. I went to the library today. I tried to get some books on reparations. There were none there. They say, well, they're at other branches, but I'm saying that there is a knowledge that we're not going to get from what I call the usual sources.
Right.
We're going to have to do a little digging.
Yeah. One of the reasons, Terry, my crew, we, and under the leadership of Lula Salvador,
Yes.
we have established a homeschooling
I love
for
that.
these
I love
kids
that.
around
I
us,
love it.
my
I
little
love it.
grands and my little
Yes, it's
nephew
beautiful.
and nieces,
It's beautiful, yeah.
about 8 or 9 of them,
Yes.
on 1 hour a week,
Oh.
1 hour a week, just to teach them specifically
Yes,
about
yes.
African history, what that means.
We need to have
And when we do that, we are doing that to prepare them for the Governor DeSantis of the world
That's
who come
right,
out with that foolishness that we were brought over here and taught.
and
how to-
we learn valuable tools in
Yeah.
slavery.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Which
nonsense.
is certainly nonsense. So we have to make sure that we grab our young ones at the beginning so they will be able to carry on because many of us, particularly the older ones of us who didn't get it at the beginning, may not get it.
May not.
So we have to depend on our youth, our young people to carry on. Because if you don't know your history, you're doomed to just...
And one of the things
fail.
at that program Saturday, we had the privilege, and you met the young man before, it was a young man named Caleb who gave a speech
Oh,
on Juneteenth. And he was only 10 years old.
Yeah.
But that speech was just, it was so powerful. He didn't even need the microphone.
Right, right.
He spoke without a mic, but what he
Uh-huh.
had to say was just so powerful. And the thing I love about his speech was that he gave a beautiful oration, but also his mother was there.
Yes,
His
and
father
his
was there.
father.
His brother was there.
Little brother.
And as a family, they supported this, and I call him a young scholar, a young scholar in training.
Oh,
So
yeah.
again, if he's speaking this way and thinking this way at 10 years old, can you imagine,
Can you imagine?
what he'll be at 18, at 20 when he's going into college and beyond that?
Yeah.
And I believe that although he was an amazing young man, I do believe that there are other young people who can follow in his
Oh, I
footsteps
know,
and
I
be
know
just as
there
great.
Are. I know there are. We call Black excellence.
Okay.
That's what
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
called.
All right.
And you see it all over the place.
Yeah, yeah,
I have a few myself. I have my little granddaughter. She's, 8 years old now. She's got a recital coming up.
Oh, wow.
So she ran into the house yesterday and, Nana, I got to get something, because she had a picture session
Yeah,
yesterday at 4 o'clock.
yeah, yeah.
And she came in, and when I started looking for my makeup just now, my lipstick
Guess
had
what?
got it and gone. I said, oh, my
Wait a
goodness.
minute. She's getting ready.
Oh, my goodness. So, yeah, they're very talented, and they got it going on, and Black excellence all over the place,
Yes,
not
yeah,
just
yeah,
her.
yeah,
The
yeah.
other children I was involved with a couple of weeks ago. I was going to bring the portion
remember you said something
on,
like
but
that,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
think it happened.
Yeah.
But in any case, they are under the tutelage of my sister Rose Cavistock, who's the teacher,
Yes,
the
yes.
music teacher for them, and they had their yearly recital.
This was in Atlantic City, right? You're telling me?
No,
That-
they
that-
were
that- that
here.
before-
We
they were here?
took
Okay.
them to Atlantic because that's what Rose does. With after the recital, we just give them a little entertainment
Okay, okay.
for the rides in Atlantic City.
Oh, okay, okay.
But she had the recital,
Uh-huh.
and I tell you, they are just Paula bound.
Oh, man, that's beautiful. No, I
This
love that. I love
one,
that.
Nana, I call her Nana. She sang, and of course Chastity, and all the other ones. They were really very good, and they played the piano so beautifully. The musically inclined.
Yeah,
musically
that's
inclined.
beautiful.
So they are just they're very smart. It's just not, you see one, you see a million of them. We just don't have the opportunity to express ourselves as often as we should, or as well as we should, because a lot of this stuff is being taken out of the school.
Yeah, but that's the point.
Yeah,
They're
the
not gonna get
music
it in the
department
schools.
is
They're not
being
getting it, yeah.
but we do have our children on the mark, and we just got to undergird them.
Okay,
We if,
okay.
if the society won't do it, we just got to do it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So with what we're doing, I'm just suggesting that, and I know a lot of Black parents are, but I'm suggesting that for those who may not have thought about it, you don't have to have anything special. Just prepare an area in your house that you can
right,
bring
that's
a couple of kids, couple of neighborhood kids,
Yes,
couple of
yes,
your kids, your
yes, yes.
nieces, nephews, grands, and bring them together. Ours is from like 6 to 10, and 1 hour a week, and teach them as much as we can about African history.
Yes,
And of
yes.
course, once they begin to hear about it, they'll get very interested
They will,
in
they
it
will.
themselves.
And they'll do the research.
Yeah.
Because I know when I was coming up, the church was a place for that.
Yes.
Because I remember, every time that
Church
we had
was the
church service,
backdrop
it
for
was.
everything
I
that
remember
we
every time
were
you
about.
came to church, you had to, recite a scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother, he was kind of lazy because they went to him for scripture, and he always says that Jesus wept. I said, okay, that's 1 week, and then he came next week. What's your scripture? Jesus wept. I said, you used that last week. So I think we got to go beyond that. But at that age, these kids are like sponges. They want this information,
Yeah, they want
and they
to.
just really they soak it
Excited
up.
about it. Yeah.
They're excited about it.
Yeah.
And we got to keep on giving it to them because again, we realize that the schools, like you said, time and time again, they're not giving the kids all that they need to really survive and thrive in this new world. It's a new world now.
A new world. Yes, it is.
And they got to be prepared.
Yeah. I'm excited, and you were right about the churches. That was the backbone for everything that we were about at the time,
It
because
was,
that's what
yeah.
we were there, and our parents was here to include us,
That's right.
and
That's right.
that whole the ministerial staffs and all
Mm-hmm.
that was involved with
That's
that was
right. That's
just
right.
very much in tune with bringing the children up. That is why I'm so excited about what's happening with my particular church now.
Yeah.
We belong to First
I love
Baptist
it.
Church,
I love it.
Lincoln Garden, and they have so many different ways bringing our young people in on different levels. The little kid you saw the other day, I first
he
heard
was
him.
amazing.
He's a First Baptist Church member.
Oh, is he?
Yes,
Okay,
he is,
okay.
and he spoke at an affair just a couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago, where a pastor, one of the co-pastors, were leaving and going to I told you. Senator Warnock's
Yes,
church
yes,
in Georgia.
In Georgia.
And this young man got up and spoke on the behalf of the young folks who the minister was, had ministered to.
Yes.
So this young man is going places. He definitely is. He is
Because the organization, he came out, the New Jersey Orators. This
Mm-hmm.
is, I think, again, this is an organization that more young people should be pushed in that direction. Because I know one of the things people say this, I don't know if they say it as much as before, but they say that for a lot of people, public speaking is just a fear that they can't get over. And I know when I went to school, the only thing that got me into public speaking was, I know up here in the north, we had what they call show and tell. Like you bring something to class, and you show it, and you talk about it. And for me, that was my first introduction to public speaking.
Right.
But it really served me well, not just in the classroom, but in interviews.
Right.
And it really helped me to, especially when I got involved in teaching. When you teach, if I teach if I'm teaching Monday through Friday, every class is really a opportunity for public speaking.
Oh, definitely.
And so I had that particular background.
Yes.
And I think, again, we need to understand that our young people need this training. That's what I call it. It's training, and we're training them for the future. Because I would hate to see any of them fall by the wayside due, like you said, lack of knowledge.
Right.
The knowledge is there, and we can just give it to them. They'll take it and they'll run with it.
Yeah.
And it'll be a beautiful thing, because I know for my twins, my grandchildren, they're being trained to be scholar athletes.
Okay.
So we're doing the athletics and we're doing the scholarship, and they're going hand in hand. They're going neck and neck, because I told them you have to have both.
Both.
Because when I was coming up, we had many young men who were very talented in basketball, football, and whatnot, but they went away to college and they couldn't make the academics. Although they had the sports prowess, they had the sports excellence, because they couldn't get the academic. They came home, and for me that's a tragedy.
Yeah.
And so now we have to make sure that they have both, because at this particular point and this particular time, I think the most important thing for young people is to be critical thinkers. You got to think for yourself.
You just
critical
said it.
thinkers.
As I said before, sometimes we excel in so many other things because we are just unarguably the greatest of anything.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But what we have missed, and I know it was purposely done too, it was all design.
Yeah,
it was by design. That we have missed the art of thinking beyond our situation. We think, but we think under a cloud of what we see that is real in our lives.
Yes.
We see we don't have jobs. We leave, Trump said black job.
Black job.
I don't know where you get that one
was
from.
a black job.
It was a black job. But in any case, they see the majority of us are lacking in those areas.
That's right. Yeah.
Don't have this. So we although we are academically astute in a lot of areas, we just miss the art of thinking beyond our situation.
Exactly.
So once we begin to think beyond what we see and say, I wonder why that is the case. If I know that I'm in a neighborhood and I see everyone else got homes and we are on the street, something tells me no one would want that.
No.
So I got to think beyond what I see. I see one thing, but I know it must be another answer, explanation around it. And once we get our people to do that, and that's going to be done by folks who, like with the virus,
that's right.
I may not have known to go out and wear a mask.
That's right.
But those folks who studied the virus had studied that in order to get out in the community, amongst people, in the atmosphere, you would have to have something to combat what was out there.
Exactly.
So the same with
protection,
if this that is the thinking behind that. We got to have folks who would always have our people thinking, I wonder, why do I see myself behind? I'm not crabbing the barrel.
Right.
I can't. I'm not my worst enemy. So what is it? So those are the kind of thoughts that we're going to have to let our, not just our children, our grown-ups, to know that we got to do a whole new thing in terms of trying to create a reality around us that's real, not something that someone else has
but
coerced
again,
us into believing.
But I think that you become what you see.
Yeah.
You know, when I was coming up in Elizabeth, New Jersey, during the 50s, I had no idea that I would be a college professor. As a matter of fact, I didn't think I would be a teacher because I didn't think I was smart enough. But I didn't. I was in class. I remember in my last year of high school. I mean, the teacher was asking questions from the class, and the white kids always raised their hands. And I said, man, those white kids are really smart. I said, well, I wish I was smart like them. And the teacher would ask a question, and they would raise their hand. And I said, man, wow, those white kids. And then one day I went home, and I don't know, I guess I was bored, and I opened up the book that they gave us, and I found out that the answers were in the book. Who knew? And then I went to school the next day. I was really excited because I had gotten these answers, and the teacher asked a question, and I raised my hand, and he would ignore me. I said, what? I raised my hand, and he ignored me. And I raised both hands, and he said, Terry, I know you want to be a comedian. But I said, no, please ask me a question. He asked me the question, and I gave the right answer. I felt so good, and my friends were looking at me. And then he asked another question. I raised my hand again, and I answered that question. And I was on a roll now, man. And my friends were looking at me and whatnot. And then I decided that, you know what, the next time I come to class, I'm not going to sit in the back. I'm going to sit in the front because I want to answer more questions because I start feeling good about myself. I said, well, I saw possibility for myself, but it only came by me actually sort of lifting the curtain and looking behind the scenes. And I think a lot of times we got to realize, I remember when I was a kid, I don't know if you did it, but I know I did it, when the TV first came out, remember? There was a thing where it wasn't that too many black people on TV. And when a black person came on, you call your neighbor and say, hey, there's black people on TV.
Wow.
And one time I was at the house by myself. And what I did is I was watching TV. Then I went behind the TV because I thought I would see the people inside the TV. But the point I'm making is that once we understand that what's behind the scenes, then we can say, well, you know what? I think I can do that. When I started teaching, I was a college administrator, but I had friends who were in the higher education. And they said, well, Terry, maybe you can teach one course, and one course led to another course and that course. But the point I'm making is that once we understand what we want to achieve, once we understand that there are role models, that there are clues to our success, then we can become that successful. We can't become it unless we see possibilities. And that's why it's so important what we're doing here and what you do with the kids and whatnot, to have them see possibilities, to see in the future. Because anybody who's successful, you don't see where you're at right now. You see where you're at 5, 10 years ahead of yourself, and you move toward that. What they say, again, during the civil rights movement, what they say, keep your eyes on the prize. And then we have to do that.
Yeah.
And you're doing that, with those kids,
Yeah, well, we just got to, and we got to, as I said before, we got to think, start thinking beyond what we actually see.
Exactly.
Now I see my folk coming on, so I'm going to say, Aaliyah Lacey, thank you. Wow, my goodness. I'm so glad you're here watching Lula Salvador. Okay, Glenn Orr, awesome, Queen Auntie, Lloyd Shivers, love you all. Aaliyah Bay, I say, Ahmad Shivers. Rashida, Robert Cavishock, we're watching, great. Sheila, okay, Juanita McClure, assalamu alaikum. Okay, Sheila Bird, I just keep watching. I tell you, we enjoyed your presence. We depend on your presence because we know that we need information to come through us that will be generated and sent through to the children.
That's right.
Because we got to depend on our youth to get this stuff together.
That's right.
That I say we need. We got to think beyond. See, we are very adept in a whole lot of things. Yeah, very adept. But we haven't got to the point we're thinking beyond our circumstances.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
keep stressing that because our circumstances present one thing. But we got to find out why, what it was, what it is that limit us to be the least at this or the least
Yeah,
at
right,
that.
right, yeah.
We're further behind in everything. And we know that's a fact, but what we don't know, there's a reason.
That's right, right,
And if
right.
we find the reason, then we won't point fingers in the wrong direction. Because to point fingers at ourselves just is totally misguided understanding.
That's right. That's
You
right.
got to know, and I keep stressing, expert in Africanism, not just an expert per se, because you can be an expert in a whole lot of things.
That's right. That's right.
A lot of things you're expert in, but I'm talking about in Africanism that will bring you back to who you were
Exactly. Exactly.
as a people before you even hit these shores.
That's right.
You were stripped. And then when you became stripped, my good friend said you were brain dirty.
That's right. That's
You know,
right.
I use the term brainwashing, but you were brain dirty.
That's right.
And if you're brain dirty, you got to clean the brain to make you
That's
know.
right. No,
To make
that's
you
real.
know
That's real.
that there's
Yeah,
something beyond and that dirty brain.
That's right. Yeah,
One of the things is you got to know who you really are.
Yes, who you are. Who are you?
And just to know who you really are will give you some indication of what you could be,
That's
or
right.
what you should be,
That's right.
what you need to be, what you ought to be.
Traditional greatness.
But you look
yeah.
back, you look now at who you really are. Then you come up with these expressions that I had in my book some years ago. We are our worst enemy. You know, think about it deeply. How could you be your worst enemy? What you have to go a few miles. You have to do a few
That's
things
right, you gotta
to get
do
there.
tricks.
Oh my word! And say we black people don't stick together. Well, if we didn't stick together, think about it. We would not be as far along as we are.
Of course.
No one else stuck with us,
No.
so we didn't stick together. So these are misnomers. Say, black folks are like crabs in the barrel. Well, in the first place, we all have been in the barrel. We was all in the barrel, and when we were trying to get out of the barrel, it was not necessarily to bring you back in. It was trying to get out myself, and maybe in trying to get out, I got a hold of you.
Yeah. Maybe I can reach back if I get out. Yeah.
Reach back again when I get out, you know?
Yeah.
So stop making excuses. I just hate that phrase.
That's right,
Stop making excuses. I coined the in my book, my latest book, Why Shouldn't I Cry? Ode to the Black Man. Those are two phrases that I say look seriously at. Excuse and explanation.
Yes.
Stop making excuses. Excuse we should never use in our vocabulary for ourselves.
That's right. No,
Because
no.
excuse mean that people who are born in white privilege have excuses because they could be anything they want to be. I don't know how far down they gone. They can wipe themselves off, brush themselves off, and become the president of the United States. Look what Trump is doing. If you don't believe
Be
it,
a felon and
and look what he's doing. But explanation is what you use for us,
That's
because
right.
there's an explanation behind why we are behind in everything.
That's right. That's right.
You know,
Yeah,
there's no
it's a
excuse
reason.
now.
No, it's no
That's
excuse.
an explanation. So when we're talking about these, we're using these words, use them very genuinely.
Yeah.
You know, don't say excuse when you mean explanation. Don't say explanation when you mean
It's gotta
excuse.
be focused.
You know?
It's specific.
We said we want the same thing as everyone else does. Well, we gotta think about that too. That's a phrase we kind of use sometimes. We want the same thing as everyone else, and not necessarily, because we don't want the chaos.
No, we don't.
You know,
we,
that's
we,
just not
we,
us.
we don't want the rat race. You know,
Right,
we
exactly.
don't want the dog eat dog. We don't want
No,
to be
we
in,
don't
the,
want
in the
that.
hamster wheel. We don't, we
Right.
don't want
I
that.
understand where they're coming from. They mean we want the things
perks, maybe.
perks, but we don't want the same thing as everyone else. I say, we trying to use this some of it. We must get past the race thing. Tell me how to do that.
No, it's all about
If
race
you got
in this
Donald
country.
Trump and all the rest of those that overthrowing governments and all that,
That's right.
tell me how to get. It's not us.
Yeah, that's pure racism. That you think because you white
Yeah.
that you better and that your way is the best way.
So we are not the one that brought it
No,
in.
no.
So we must get past the race thing. It's something that we shouldn't even try to think about.
No.
And there's another thing. You can be wherever you want to be. Really. No, that is just not.
That's not true.
It became a little bit more a fact maybe even some years back, but we're digressing. So it's not so much we can be anything we want to be. I think people thought that when President Obama became president. So, oh my goodness, we've reached a mile.
Yeah, but now it's experiencing the backlash.
Backlash. So there's like backlash.
Yeah,
that's what that is.
Yeah,
there's a book out.
Yeah, and some people the book White Rage.
Right, yeah.
So we experience white rage.
So that happens whenever we move 4 steps. Right. They move 3 steps back. Yeah. So. And this is a phrase that we used to use, and I think when we was introduced to Dr. DeSantis, I think Governor DeSantis, I think we might retract that.
Yes,
but we used to say, I don't care who teaches my children as long as they're being taught.
No.
No, you should care who teaches your child.
You gotta care.
Because some of these people are teaching stuff like Governor DeSantis.
Yeah.
And he's not the only one.
No, he's not the one.
But he was a teacher, I understand, back in the day before he became governor. So now, can you imagine what he was teaching our children?
Yeah.
No, so we have to be careful with how we.
Because even when they use the Bible, now they want to have the 10 Commandments in the school.
Yeah.
But they don't want it for the right reason.
Yeah.
They want it for their indoctrination.
Yeah. And here's another one we say. We cannot dwell on racism. Why not? If it's dwelling on us, why can't we dwell on? Yeah, I think we better.
Protect yourself.
Yeah, I think we better.
Know thy enemies.
I think we just better. Let me see. There was no one. There's another phrase we used to use. No one owes you anything. Really? If I work for 200 years for free labor, somebody got to owe me something.
The worker deserves his way. Yeah.
What did it say? Read it again, Terry.
I'll be glad to read it.
All right.
It says here that the worker is worthy of his wage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. The laborer deserves his wages. Mm-hmm. Okay. It says this is in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And I like what it says here. It says here, for we hear that there are some who walk among you in disorderly manner, not working at all, but being busybodies. Mm-hmm. So if you're not working, you're going to be a busybody. And there's no value in being a busybody, so we want you to work.
Right.
To work, because that's what's going to bring forth the progress that we need.
Yeah.
Work equals progress.
Yes. Another phrase we can read here, Terry. White policemen need sensitivity training. You know, we heard that all the time.
I heard that before.
I'm just reminded of this little kid yesterday. I don't know the details of it, but I know any kid, 13-year-old, shouldn't be shot dead like that.
No.
Somewhere up in New York, there was a shooting, and they had the kid on the ground. And they claimed he had a gun.
Oh, my goodness.
Pointing at them. They found out it was not a real gun.
It never is.
Never is.
Yeah.
But anyway, shot him while he was on the ground. I mean, was on top of him.
Yeah. He was subdued.
He was subdued.
He was no threat.
On top of him. And I know understand that one, and they don't understand it either. But when we say white policemen need sensitivity training, why would we say they need sensitivity training when they don't do their own like that? So it tells me that you don't need sensitivity training. You know what you're doing when you're doing it.
That's right.
You know, and we need to stop using that excuse for them, because no one needs to know how not to kill a person.
No.
And I'm not saying sometimes it may be necessary, but if it's necessary for black kids, then it may be necessary for white kids, but I don't ever hear this being done.
Never hear it.
To them. Yeah. So it tells me that you don't need sensitivity training. You got that already. You just need to be that gun taken away from you, and you don't need that job.
That's right.
Because we'll learn now that the same people like Trump, those Proud Boys or whomever,
the Proud Boys,
purposely got on the police force when they realized that they couldn't use the the white sheets anymore.
Yeah.
So they jump from the white sheets to the blue.
Infiltrate.
Yeah,
The system. Yeah.
yeah. And now that they are free to use the white sheets again, I guess maybe we can believe that maybe may not be on many of them on the police force.
It's crazy.
But yeah, this has been interesting. But just to reiterate, and just to thank all you all again for watching, I truly thank you and appreciate you.
Yes.
And if you like the program and if you think it's worthy, just always know you can contribute by Cash App, Ruby Shivers, what is it? Dollar sign Ruby Shivers, and Zelle, or any other way you want to send it in, old-fashioned way check, right? Whatever.
Good, yeah.
Whatever. But I do appreciate your watching and continue to watch. And remember, this month will be reparation. I'm going to bring those folks on who are talking seriously, because it's serious now. And there's a lot of people who are very much involved with trying to get the reparation that we deserved years ago. So if you're interested, just keep watching. We're going to bring those folks on starting next week. I don't know the guests yet, but we will have someone talking reparation. And I want to thank you all again. Thank you, Terry, for being here. And we're just going to see you next week and say adios and thank you.